You know, delivering excellence is more than just 18 wheels moving products around the country. Trucking is complex, and its people are passionate. Accommodating a diverse driving workforce, ever changing regulations, supply chain demands, and new technologies all present their own challenges, but in trucking, the creative and the innovative succeed. Let's understand the people that drive and support the trucking industry, and welcome to Garner Trucking's Beyond the Cab. Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Cab. I am pretty fired up today to have some conversation with two individuals that have been a part of the apprenticeship program here at Garner Trucking. We have with us today Mr. Dalton Lee and Mr. Jacob Szabo. I have to say I'm pretty passionate about the apprenticeship program. I shared this a little bit before we sat down to have this conversation. I believe very much in individuals that are making the choice to come into trucking at the age of 18 versus someone like myself who came into the industry at 25 as kind of a different path from the one I had chosen. Not that that's a bad thing, and obviously I've been pretty successful over time, and I'm so thankful that I made the choices that I did to come into trucking. But to be able to have individuals that have decided that as a career path they want to get into trucking, drive truck, and learn the business and the ins and outs, and hopefully last 30, 40 years in the industry, I think that's a better building point than finding it as a second, third, or 10th career choice, at a later time in life. So that's kind of my own personal take on the apprenticeship portion of things. What I'm interested to find out from each of you is, first of all, just a little bit about your backgrounds. And Dalton, I'm going to start with you, just in terms of you originally from Grover Hill, Ohio. Went obviously through school and did some training to get your CDL. But prior to that, give me a little bit about your background, your high school.
Came from Grover Hill. It's a small country town. I say about 200 people, if that. Because everybody knows my family around Grover Hill, because it's the middle side family. So everybody knows each other there. Half my family, we farm. Half of us, we do trucking or work at factories. Everybody knows me because I've been helping out mowing people's yards since 5th grade. High school wasn't the best for me.
Me neither.
I went to, it's closed down now, but it was an alternative school. It was called Synergy. My grades went up from there and stuff. From there, I went to Vantage Career Center my senior year for construction equipment. And then from there, I was on the AB honor roll. And then I got asked if you'd be interested for your CDL. I said yes. They was just more worried that I putting me in and stuff if I didn't pass, because I was on a IEP. But from there, it was a little bit of struggle of passing some things like the pre-trip and stuff. But I passed. Went to getting the testing on the test site. Passed out all good and everything. Then I got my CDL. One of my next door neighbors that knows me, he heard I got my CDL. He actually goes bowling and golfing with Ben down in Dispatch. He contacted Ben, asked if they'd be interested hiring a 18-year-old for trucking. So he gave me Ben sent over Danielle's phone number, and then that's how I found out about Garner and the apprenticeship program.
Jacob, what about you? Give me a little about your background.
Yeah, so raised in Bluffton about all my life. Always from a young age interested in transportation, trucks, planes, trains. When I was like in first grade, somebody brought their truck down, and my first grade class got to go see it, and I was like enamored by it. It was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. But you know, as a kid, interests kind of change, and just, you know, kind of hopping around different things. And then when I was a sophomore in high school and heard about, well, the recruiter from Apollo came and talked about different programs and mentioned that you can get your commercial driver's license in the construction equipment program, which really interested me because at that point I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't really want to just sit around no offense to him, but sit around in an office all day.
None taken.
After COVID and having to sit around my bedroom all the time, I just felt like, at least when I'm young, I want to be able to go out and work a job where I'm doing something new every day, seeing different things. And
yeah, the office scenery changes every day in trucking, right?
Yeah. Went to Apollo my junior year in the construction program, and it was okay, but then I learned that because of some laws changing, in order to get your commercial driver's license your senior year, you had to turn 18 by January 1st of that school year, which I did not. Mine was in March. So I knew I wouldn't be able to get my CDL for free through that program anyway. And in the summer after my junior year, tried out an excavating job, and it didn't work out for a few reasons. And just decided I'd go back to Bluffton my senior year. And so when I was back at Bluffton my senior year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then we had to do this capstone project around Thanksgiving. And then I was like, well, okay, now I actually kind of have to figure out what I want to do when I'm done with high school. And I'd always just thought, well, I'll graduate and then get my CDL and get a job somewhere. But then I started researching more and more and seeing, oh, well, you know, you got to be 21 to do interstate driving. And then, oh, well, most of these companies won't sponsor your CDL training if you're not 21 yet. And then it kind of had me concerned a little bit. But then I found Apollo, and I saw that they had a spring class in the evenings that would start right after I turned 18. So it worked out perfectly for me for when I turned 18. And then so what I did my last quarter of high school is, you know, I'd go to school during the day, and then in the evening go drive down to Apollo, and this time in their adult education side in the truck driving academy, and worked out really good. And then it was in that I learned about this program, the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, and then I saw that Garner is one of the, you know, few companies in the whole country, let alone a few companies around me that are
right in your backyard, basically.
Yeah, and then I also knew Jesse Liberato, who's a trainer here. I knew his daughter Liliana. She hosted a Bible study at their house every week, and got to know him a little bit. And he of course had nothing but good things to say about the company. And then I got my CDL early summer, and got hired right in here and started training with Jesse, and it's been a blast. It's been really nice. To
our good fortune, you know, one of the things I like to draw out about this particular program is the success stories that we've had with the two of you, and what you've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time. In that, you know, we're talking about extremely safe drivers. We're talking about extremely dependable drivers that really you're kind of homegrown at this point, right? And I think it surprised some folks around here, especially when, you know, there is apprehension. We have to be honest about the fact that we're talking about an 18-year-old that's driving a tractor trailer, and the sheer thought for any parent that's taught their 16-year-old to drive, this isn't for everyone. And I think that's the point that gets missed in this equation, is that we're not talking about every 18-year-old that's out there. We're talking about the 18-year-old that has the aptitude, the interest, the willingness, the understanding that this is a job and it's not just driving a truck, right? And I think that that's what kind of gets missed from all of this. And that one of the things I wanted to highlight, because the two of you are such excellent examples of what I'm trying to illustrate. At this point in time, Dalton, what are your impressions of the industry? I know that you have some background and stuff. You've got an uncle that's involved in trucking, but now that you're driving tractor trailer and you've been out on the road, what are your impressions of the industry at this point?
It can be tough. It's like, number one, it's like, is big is like defensive driving. Like, because a lot of times you get brake check and stuff, but good so far. We've been having good shippers and receivers. So far, like I said, it's been good. Like, every now and then you will have your bad days, like normal, but it's been good so far.
I guess my other question would be, Jacob, is this what you expected?
I think so. I think really the only, I mean, I don't want to say letdown. It's just I was really into, when I was a sophomore, I saw this, or maybe I was a freshman, this YouTuber, and she drives a truck, and I think she was a FedEx contractor, and she was out west in like Utah and stuff, and had her German Shepherd, and always got these really picturesque views. But out here, we're really
pretty flat.
We're really just in the Midwest, so I don't really get. I mean, just, taking the Pennsylvania Turnpike is pretty cool. I like that, and yeah. I mean, other than that, and that's not a big deal at all, of course.
No, but I understand where you're coming from with that. I think that I drove for about 4 years, and being able to see the arch in St. Louis from the highway for the first time, taking the trip across Maryland on Interstate 68, it's both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. That's part of the reason I think we get into it, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, just a few weeks ago, they found me something on a load board going down to Louisiana, and I'd never really been to that part of the country at all, and it was just so awesome, just driving down I think it was 55 or 57 in southern Arkansas, northern Missouri, just watching the sunrise and the freshly harvested cotton fields, and just it smelled so good, and it was just
different exposures.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the promise of trucking. Dalton, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I know. I went because we have a house up in Gaylord and stuff, but I never went across the Mackinac Bridge, so I got to see the Mackinac Bridge, went over that, see Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I've been down to St. Louis with the trainer when I was in training. Same with Little Rock, Arkansas, and then down to Georgia.
You stretch your legs a little bit too.
Right.
Is there anything, Jacob, that you wish you would have known when you started out?
You just got to be consistent, and you got to just be getting up every day, and especially early. I'd never really been used to that growing up, getting up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Yeah, I mean, just if I would have told myself that, a year ago, I don't know how much good that would have been, because it's just something that you just gotta do it. You can't really mentally train yourself for it. It's just something that you gotta be day in and day out. You
gotta experience.
Gotta experience it, and gotta be willing to get up and go and drive for 11 hours, be on duty 14 hours, sometimes 16 hours if you get the 2-hour break in, and then just be
ready for whatever.
Yeah.
I think that adjustment is the biggest part. Even the closest I ever came to understanding that was my father worked for a number of years at a heating and cooling plant, and he worked basically swing shift. So he'd work during the day during 1 week. The next week he was working second shifts. The week after that he was working third shift, and it would just be this constant rotation. He did that for over 25 years. And so that was the closest I ever got to kind of understanding what it would be like to live that lifestyle. And then when you become a truck driver and get out there, and you kind of are living that, but on the daily, right? Mm-hmm. It could be any number of things. You try to keep a regular schedule, and I think we do a much better job in today's world than we did, 20, 30 years ago and previous to that even. Let's talk a little bit. I just want to talk a little bit about the training itself. It's not a typical training program that we would give someone that is over the age of 21, and maybe it should be, arguably. Dalton, what was your training like, as far as our training out on the road?
It was good. Took, I'd say, about almost 3 months for me to complete the training. With that, like it took what it was like 480 hours to complete, like just to get the hours in, but you have to meet certain standards to complete it all to be out on your own.
That's kind of what I appreciate about this, is that this is a program that our government set up, and it had very strict guidelines, very strict rules in terms of how long we had to train, the equipment that we had in the truck. There were a lot of requirements to meet with this.
My training, like I liked it and stuff.
Did you find it difficult? And if so, what was the most difficult part?
Difficult part for me was with training was I don't like to share space. So inside of a semi with someone else for 5, maybe 6 days a week.
Yeah, it's legitimate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a legit, great point too. And those are the types of things that you don't really think about as you get into trucking. You think about the fact that you're going to have a small space to live in each and every day, but you don't think about the fact that you're going to now have to share this space with someone else. And actually, it's not even your space; it's their space, and you're just taking up room in it. So, yeah, it's an excellent point. How about for you?
Yeah, so like Dalton was saying, it's just a long process. So my trainer Jesse, he was on a 4x4 schedule, so it ended up, I think it ended up being like 13 weeks, so close to 3 months for me too. I think, and I think I told Jesse at the beginning, I was like, this first week or two, like I'm probably gonna learn a lot, and then like the rest of it is probably just gonna be boring for you. Like we're just gonna be cruising. So. He was correct to question that, but I still think that maybe after 5 or 6 weeks, then I kind of really got in the groove, and then we were just pretty much just going from there, pretty easy. But yeah, the biggest adjustment really is like I feel like I had the driving down, the backing down, just from my CDL training at Apollo. Just the one thing that I didn't have down, and like we were just talking about, is just the getting up early, and you're working. For me, it was four days a week. For the 5x6 guys, it's 5-6 days a week. And Jesse will tell you that our first trip, going to Michigan and Chicago, and I drove us from Michigan to Chicago and back. And then the next morning we had to drive to Columbus, and I was driving, and he was like, we should switch out. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And then finally, like he saw that I was not good. I was getting pretty tired, and that's one thing. It's hard to tell when you're too fatigued to drive. Like our minds really and our bodies really do a good job of tricking us into thinking that we're good.
Yeah, you're just okay.
And then he forced me to stop at the Marion Rest Area, and we switched out.
Well, I think that's one of those things that there's even in our grading and the way that we look at the training program, part of that is stamina. I mean, we that's a documented thing. It's not something that is natural, in that job.
Right.
You have to have stamina, and it takes time to build that. You don't build that overnight. And I think one of the important things about the training program, right? It gives you a safety net. You've got an individual that's there in the truck with you, monitoring what's going on. We don't run a team operation, and it makes that, I think, that transition at least a little more helpful.
Yeah. And I think maybe for us 18, 19, 20-year-olds, maybe it does take a little bit longer to develop that stamina. It certainly was a pretty seamless transition from training to solo. I felt like I was totally equipped in really every way possible. It was really smooth.
Well, one of the things that I found was interesting, Dalton and I were having some conversation before we sat down, and I thought this was pretty interesting, and not something that I necessarily would have thought of, but I think is a great idea. So since we have 3 apprentices that are out on the road, you guys are running interstate. Dalton had mentioned that our third person, the one's missing today, Jared, he put together a communications, some sort of a group chat type thing to help the 3 of you out. Has that been a useful thing to have?
He actually started that Monday evening, if I believe correctly. So we haven't used it that much.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, because like with me, like the one instant, because it wasn't with the group chat or anything. I was up did the drop, was hooking up to it empty. That week I had to use my handle for something else, so I forgot to bring it into the truck. And so I had all my trailer brakes froze up. Cause I called my grandpa first, cause he drove, I say, about 30 years before his eyes got bad. So I knew he had some tricks. He's like, well, if you can, try and drag it out onto a dry surface and stuff. And he's like, when you do that, put it in reverse. So I still learned a little bit of tricks. It's like I told them, like, when it got started, like, if I don't know anything, I might call, ask my grandpa and see, and then show in the group chat. But that's what saved me on that. But when Jared started that group chat, I never even thought about it, and I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, I do too. I love the technology that we can use to be able to communicate and hopefully help you out. That's one of the other things is we're talking about a distinct age difference between, the conversation we're having. I'm, going to be 52 this year. You guys are, at the beginning of your adulthood. I'm interested to find out some of the kind of the non-trucking things about the two of you, though. So in terms of television or streaming, movies, what's the last television show or movie that you watched, Dalton?
I usually don't watch TV that much because I'm constantly on the go. I said it was something on Netflix, but It's been a couple of months ago when I watched TV or anything.
Jacob, what about you?
I think it was a month or so ago. I went up with my girlfriend. We went to a movie theater. We watched Night Swim. It's a horror movie. It was the opening night, and there were only 2 other couples in this whole movie theater.
Is this downtown Bluffton?
No. She lives in Ontario.
Oh, okay.
So 2.5 hour drive for me. So this big movie theater, and only a few of us there, and it was interesting.
Did you get a case of the heebie-jeebies in there watching a movie with nobody in the theater?
I think there was one jump scare that actually legitimately got us, but the rest of it was pretty
lame.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I would definitely agree with you. My wife is a giant-sized horror movie fan. She just loves that genre, and I'm okay with it. I could take or leave it. Doesn't really matter to me. I can watch those movies or not watch them. It wouldn't matter either way. And just because historically I've been married for 30 years, so you can imagine the amount of horror movies I've seen over the years. There's not much that really scares you anymore. I think real life is a little scarier. What, Jacob, would you say that people seem to misunderstand about you?
Man, I got to think about that. You want to ask Dalton that and give me time to think about that?
Dalton, what do you say?
With me, because I have ADHD and stuff. Schooling wasn't the best because I always got picked on and stuff. Basically, like, when that group chat was started, I told everybody, I'm like, it might seem like I don't care or, like, don't like to help, but I do. It just, I'm more, like, get the job done type with, like, anything. So, like, if I'm focused on something, I'm wanting to get it finished.
You're going to execute, right?
Yeah. And so, like, that's what a lot of people misunderstand about that. Like, every once in a while I always stumble with my speech and stuff because of it. A lot of people think I don't care, but
you do. Yeah. We were having a conversation again before we started, and I found it really interesting that you were helping out a neighbor with lawn work, an older couple, and the husband had passed years before, and now there's some tragedy in that world, and you're going to take some time off to go and spend time before end of life with the lady of the home.
Yeah. I help out too. That's in Grover Hill. Once my next door neighbor, she lives a block away. I told the other group because we help veterans in need. So if I'm not at work or doing that, with that of helping out that I can, because obviously traveling for work and stuff, weekends I have free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, takes time away. Do you have a chance to think about it?
I think mine is sort of similar. Like when I'm here, when I'm working, when I'm on the road, like I'm kind of just focused on getting the job done, and just working. And so I'm kind of quiet, maybe like even a little cold. Some people like that interact with it, shippers or receivers, and I don't know, it's just tough because I don't want to be, mean or come across as rude. Like I've been paid with a price. I've been paid by Christ's blood, and I just want to be an advocate for him. But also, it's like just wanting to be professional and get the job done. It's just a tough balance to be an advocate for Christ, I think, and also seeking to just execute every day and try to execute every day and be professional and just try to get the job done as efficiently and quickly as I can, while not, trying to piss people off or anything like that. especially like on the road, cars and stuff like that, like people getting mad when you have to move over a lane because there's people on the shoulder with their four ways on, like they take it personal. It's like, sorry, but
it's the professional side of the job,
Yeah.
those courtesies, and frankly the safety of those situations. It's up to our drivers to be responsible on the highways, and sometimes it is misunderstood. I think that the two answers that you gentlemen just gave really encapsulate who you are as individuals, just in terms of the composition of you both. And I think it speaks testimony to what can be this industry's future, is the ideologies of helpfulness and the godliness of what your belief system is, and where you're coming from, and trying to do the right things, either with your neighbor or with folks out on the road. And again, I just think that personally speaks a lot of testimony to the caliber of individuals, again, 18-year-olds that are out on the road, and they're hauling the nation's freight. They're professional, as you can hear and see. And again, I started this by saying I'm such a believer in the program. We've been believers since about 2015. We started an apprenticeship program. We could only go intra-state, which means, just the state of Ohio. If I put you in a truck in Ashtabula or Conneaut, which is up in the northeast corner of the state of Ohio, I could legally have you drive, over 200 miles down to Cincinnati. But I could not have you drive from here to Fort Wayne, which is, barely 100 miles, and cross the state line. So that was, quote unquote illegal. It's kind of a silly set of rules, and we're trying to kind of dismantle some of that. I just want to ask one more question of each of you, and I think maybe the most important question for anyone who's considering this lifestyle. Dalton, I'm going to start with you on this. What advice would you give someone wanting to enter the trucking industry?
Your schedule of waking up, because you don't know what time and stuff, or how far you're away from the receiver or ship, or from your appointment time. So yeah, your wake up time's different. Just depends on like your schedule. If you're home daily, 4x4, or 5-6 days a week, sometimes spend away from family. I'm a big family guy, so that's one thing I do just big for. But those, like I said, those are the two things that are, and also like a big defensive driver.
Okay.
Like I had actually yesterday, I had went into 2 lanes. I had to make sure that was clear because they had one lane blocked off right on a blind side left cove. I avoided that, but like I said, those are the big things for me.
Thank you. Jacob?
Yeah,
what would you say?
I think it'd be, you should know what you want to do, and once you figure that out, you really need to do your homework on what company you want to drive for. Like, so first of all, you want to know, do you want to be home daily? Do you want to be home weekly? Do you want to be the over-the-road type who's gone for months on end, and then has their 34-hour break at home every few months or something like that? And once you figure out what you want to do, you need to really be reading the fine print of your company, of what they're expecting of you. I mean, I've talked to so many guys here at Garner who had jobs before where, one guy, he was promised either a home daily or a home weekly job, and he was out over the road team driving, doing cross country stuff, like when he explicitly didn't want to do. It was like the one thing he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
You just need to evaluate your priorities and what you want to do in life, because you're not just entering a job, you're entering a career. Like, you got to be thinking long term about a lot of these things, and then just research your company, look at like Indeed.com for the reviews of drivers and stuff like that.
Get to the truth. I think that's always going to be part of that process. I know that even fundamentally, when I got started in the industry, the first thing that anyone worth their salt told me was go talk to their drivers, whatever trucking company that is. I think one of the beauties of the industry in total, and what makes it so attractive, and you guys do, I've got a dynamic here. I've got a 5 to 6 day driver. I've got a 4x4 driver, and they're completely different. 750,000 other registered companies in the U.S. That all offer something a little bit different. And for that individual, we have those drivers that love to get out over the road. They love to go as far as they can. They don't mind taking their breaks out on the road, taking their 34 hours off out on the road. And then you have other drivers that they need to be home. They've got things going on, those local opportunities that can happen. That dynamic, I think, is an important one to express about the industry in total. We can't be everything to everyone at all times. I've always said this, if you talk to a flatbed driver, they're going to tell you it's the best type of trucking to get into. If you talk to a van driver, they're going to tell you it's the best type of trucking to get into. All of these different things, your heavy hauling, your tankers, covered wagons, all these different opportunities that are out there in the industry. Great advice. You've got to be able to kind of find out what's going to work for you and what makes sense for your lifestyle, what you're actually looking to get out of the industry and out of the trucking company you go to work for. Well, Jacob and Dalton, I want to thank you both for your time today. Again, I think just excellent examples of what this apprenticeship program can put out, and I would encourage any other trucking companies that are either involved in the program or need to get involved with the program that you get with the FMCSA to find out how to get that done. And let's bring some individuals that really want to be in this industry come into the industry. Thank you both for your time, and this has been another edition of Beyond the Cab.